Um, Imagine for a second that you're walking into a doctor's office.
Mm-hmm.
You feel, okay, maybe a little tired, a little overscheduled, but generally fine.
Right, just normal busy life stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're active, your calendar is absolutely packed, but the doctor looks at your chart, looks back at you, and just shakes his head.
Uh-oh.
He says, you are suffering from a critical condition. And it's not a virus, it's not a broken bone. He writes a diagnosis on his pad and slides it across the table. It says, amnesia from within.
Which is, frankly, a terrifying way to start any medical appointment.
It really is. But that is the central metaphor in the manuscript we're doing a deep dive into today. It's titled, The Mission Was Never Optional. And the argument here is that this amnesia is the exact state of the modern church.
Yeah, it's a bold claim right out of the gate.
The source argues that the church isn't dying from outside attacks or, a lack of money. It's simply that the church has forgotten why it exists in the first place.
It's a crisis of identity, not activity. That's the core distinction the author makes. I mean, we have plenty of activity.
Budgets, buildings, committees.
Exactly, all the events. But the source argues that all of that activity is actually masking a loss of purpose. We are so busy doing church that we've forgotten the point of the church.
We're busy, so we just assume we're effective.
Right.
But the text says mission has shifted from being who we are, our identity, to what we do, which is an activity. And I want to unpack that a bit because on the surface, that sounds kind of like semantics, identity versus activity. What's the practical difference there?
It's massive, actually. Think about it this way. If mission is an activity, it's something you can schedule. It's a department, it's a line item in the budget, and usually a pretty small one.
Yeah.
It's something you can opt out of if you're too busy.
Like saying, I can't do mission this week, I have a dentist appointment.
Exactly.
Or I did my mission time last Saturday, so I'm completely off the clock now.
Right, but if mission is your identity, it's like being a parent. You don't stop being a father just because you're at the grocery store or at work.
You don't schedule being a human being.
You don't. It's the fundamental reality of your existence. The source argues that the church has treated mission like a program, something we turn on and off, rather than the very air we breathe.
And this leads to that really provocative phrase in the introduction. The church doesn't have a mission?
God's mission has a church.
Yeah, that one stopped me cold.
Yeah.
God's mission has a church. It sounds like a riddle.
So this touches on a theological concept called the Missio Dei, or the mission of God. The idea is that God isn't just sitting up in heaven waiting for us to come up with good ideas.
It's an act of sending God.
Precisely. He sent the Son sent the Spirit, and the Spirit sends the church. The church was created specifically to participate in that movement.
So if you remove the mission...
You don't just have a church with less to do. You essentially dismantle the church entirely. You stop being the thing you were created to be.
It's like a car without an engine.
Yes. It might look like a car, it has seats and a steering wheel, maybe a really nice paint job, but if it doesn't move, it's just a heavy metal box taking up space in the driveway.
That's the amnesia. We're the car sitting in the driveway, polishing the dashboard, totally forgetting that we're supposed to drive somewhere.
And the source spends a lot of time diagnosing exactly how we got here. It calls this the departmentalization of mission.
The silo problem.
Right. We love silos. Modern organizations are totally built on them. We have the worship department, the kids department, the facilities department.
And then usually down the hall in a much smaller office, the missions department.
And the subtle message that sends is pretty damaging.
Because it creates a structural barrier.
It does.
Yeah.
It tells the average person sitting in the pew, hey, mission is a specialized task for a specific group of people. It's something the pros handle.
The text calls this the myth of the specialist.
Yes, this is the idea that evangelism or mission is some kind of superpower, like being able to play the piano or dunk a basketball.
We look at the professionals, the clergy, the missionaries who go overseas.
And we think, well, that's their job. I'm just a regular person. I'm a baker or an accountant or a mom. I don't have that specific gift.
I'm just in the support role. I write the check so they can do the mission.
Exactly. It creates a two-tiered Christianity. You have the sent few and the stayed many. But the source points out that Scripture actually leaves zero room for spectators.
It brings up the book of Acts here, right?
Yeah.
Specifically the persecution of the early church.
It's a fascinating detail that often gets overlooked. In Acts 8, persecution breaks out in Jerusalem. And the text says the believers were scattered and went about preaching the word.
Right.
But it explicitly says the apostles, the professionals, stayed in Jerusalem.
Wait, so the pros stayed home.
The pros stayed home. The people spreading the gospel, planting churches, and turning the world upside down were the refugees.
The ordinary folks.
The merchants, the artisans, the regular people running for their lives, they didn't have a missions committee telling them what to do. They didn't have a strategy document. They just went because they were believers, and believers share the news.
That kills the spectator model pretty effectively. But let's be honest, most of us do feel like spectators. We feel unqualified, or maybe just intimidated.
Sure.
The source pivots here to address why we feel that pressure. It suggests we've actually been reading the Great Commission wrong our whole lives.
Matthew 28. Go and make disciples.
It feels like a marching order, a very heavy marching order. Go do this impossibly hard thing.
And that is exactly how it's usually preached. It's the guilt trip passage. Why aren't you going? Why aren't you doing more? Look at the numbers. They're down.
Yeah, lots of panic.
But the source points out a critical nuance in the text. The Great Commission doesn't actually start with the command to go.
It starts with a statement.
It starts with a declaration of reality. Jesus says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me.
Authority comes first.
Authority is the foundation. The command to go flows downstream from that sovereignty. Jesus is essentially saying, I have already secured the victory. I own the field. Now, because of that reality, therefore, go.
That's a huge psychological shift. If I'm going out to win a victory for God, I'm anxious, I'm stressed out. If I lose, God loses.
Right. But if you are going because the victory is already secured, you aren't a soldier trying to take a hill against impossible odds. You're a herald announcing that the king has already taken it.
It moves from panic to allegiance.
Exactly. The source uses the analogy of the ambassador here, referencing 2 Corinthians 5. This is crucial for breaking that silo mentality we talked about earlier.
I love the ambassador analogy. Because an ambassador isn't a volunteer.
No, and an ambassador isn't a freelancer either. If you are the U.S. ambassador to France, you represent the United States 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
You don't clock out at 5 p.m. and just stop being an ambassador.
Right. If you get into a fist fight at a grocery store on a Tuesday night...
It's an international incident, you're on CNN.
Exactly. You are misrepresenting your sovereign. The source argues that this dissolves the line between the sacred and the secular. You are an ambassador in your cubicle. You are an ambassador on the sidelines of your kid's soccer game.
You're an ambassador when you're stuck in traffic.
Which means you don't need to add mission activities to your calendar. You don't need to find 3 extra hours a week. You need to inhabit the hours you already have with an entirely different mindset.
It's about intentionality in the spaces you already occupy. But sometimes that intentionality requires a level of sacrifice that is, frankly, pretty uncomfortable to talk about in our modern context.
You're talking about the Moravians.
I am. The source calls them the ultimate case study in this sent identity. And honestly, this part of the manuscript blew my mind. I had heard the name Moravians before, mostly associated with hymns or history books, but I didn't know this specific story.
It's a story that puts our modern excuses to shame, really. We're talking 18th century, a community of refugees living on the estate of a guy named Count Zinzendorf in Germany.
So these aren't wealthy, powerful people.
Far from it. They were potters, carpenters, farmers. They had very little money. But they had this intense, burning conviction that the Lamb who was slain, Jesus, was worthy of a reward for his suffering.
They wanted people from every nation to know him.
And that conviction led 2 young men to make a decision that sounds absolutely insane to modern ears.
Johann Dober and David Nitschmann.
Yes. They heard about the plight of enslaved people in the West Indies, specifically in the Caribbean. They knew these people were living in horrific conditions and dying without ever hearing the gospel.
But there was a problem.
A massive problem. The slave owners would not allow missionaries to speak to the enslaved population. They didn't want them getting ideas about freedom or dignity.
So the door was completely closed.
Legally, socially, physically closed. Most of us would look at that and say, well, we prayed about it, but the door is shut. God must not want us to go.
Not God's timing.
Right. But for these Moravian men, the mission wasn't optional. They realized the only way to get close enough to share the message was to become slaves themselves.
They offered to sell themselves into slavery.
Into indentured servitude. To give up their freedom, their rights, and potentially their lives just to gain access to the people they wanted to reach.
That is just intense. It's almost hard to process.
It is. And the source highlights this not to say we all need to sell ourselves into slavery, but to show the contrast in priority. They didn't ask if mission was feasible.
They didn't ask if it was safe.
Or if it fit the church budget. They assumed it was necessary.
And the source mentions that this wasn't just a burst of useful energy either. This was sustained by something.
Prayer. But not the kind of quick bless us prayer we usually hear. They started a 24-hour prayer watch. Someone was praying every single hour of the day and night. Do you know how long that prayer meeting lasted?
The source said 100 years.
100 years, nonstop. Prayer was the engine. They didn't see prayer as the prelude to the work. Prayer was the work that fueled the sending.
Okay, so we have the theology, the authority first. We have the inspiration, the Moravians. But now I really want to get practical, because the reality is most of you listening to this are part of organizations that are stuck in that silo mentality. We are busy. We are cluttered. How do we fix it?
The source offers a really clear roadmap here. And it starts with a concept that is going to be very unpopular with some people. It's called ministry pruning.
Pruning, like gardening, cutting things off.
Exactly. The hard truth this manuscript presents is that most churches are overprogrammed. We are doing way too many things that are good, but not effective at the actual mission. We're cluttered.
So how do you decide what to cut? Because if you cut the coffee hour, people get mad. If you cut the Wednesday night lecture series, people get mad.
The source proposes a scoring system. You have to evaluate every single program on a grid. Is this high alignment or low alignment with disciple making? And to do that, you have to distinguish between accumulation and multiplication.
Define those for us.
Accumulation is gathering people. It's counting heads. Hey, we had 500 people at the event. That's accumulation. Feels like success because the room is full.
But are they actually growing?
Right. Multiplication is asking, are these people being equipped to go out and reach others? Are they becoming senders? So a lecture series where everyone sits passively might score high on accumulation, lots of people, but very low on multiplication.
Whereas a small mentorship group of 3 people, where they are learning to share their faith and hold each other accountable, might score low on accumulation.
But sky high on multiplication. And the source argues, quite radically, that we need to prune the activities that are only about accumulation to make space for multiplication.
That takes guts.
It requires courageous leadership. You can't just add a missional identity on top of an already exhausted calendar. You have to make space. You have to stop doing good things to do the best things.
So that's the organizational side, pruning the programs.
Yeah.
But the source also gives us a tool for the personal side, for that ambassador in the cubicle. It calls it mapping your geography.
This is based on Acts 1.8. You will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and in all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth.
We usually think of that as a travel itinerary. First the city, then the region, then the world.
But the source applies it as a personal grid for your daily life. Jerusalem isn't a city in the Middle East for you. It's your immediate context. Your Jerusalem is your family, your roommates, your coworkers, your literal neighbors next door.
So mapping your Jerusalem means actually looking at your week and asking, who am I physically around?
Exactly. Write the names down. These are the people you are an ambassador to. And then Samaria, this is interesting, in the Bible, Samaria wasn't just far away. It was nearby, but it was the cultural other, the people the Jews were uncomfortable with.
The people across the tracks.
Right.
Or across the political divide.
Right. So the source asks, who are the Samaritans in your city? Who are the people socially or culturally distant from you? Mission involves crossing those invisible boundaries. It clarifies that you don't need a passport to be a missionary.
You might just need to walk across the street.
Or sit at a different table in the cafeteria.
It forces you to look at your life and realize, I am already sent. I'm just not acting like it.
Yes. And to track that, the source argues we need to entirely change our metrics. We need to stop measuring the easy stuff.
Attendance and giving.
The 2 things every church measures.
Mm-hmm.
How many people came and how much money did they give? The source argues those are lagging indicators of an institutional club, not a missional movement.
So what should we measure instead?
The text proposes 3 new metrics: obedience, spiritual multiplication, and courageous witness.
Those sound a lot harder to put on a spreadsheet. How do you measure courageous witness?
It's anecdotal, but it's powerful. It means leadership asking the question, did anyone take a risk this week? Did anyone share their story with a coworker? Did anyone pray for a neighbor?
Instead of asking, how was the turnout, the question becomes, did we see the Spirit move?
Exactly. And obedience, are people actually doing what Jesus commanded, or are they just learning about it? We have a tendency to think that if we took notes on a sermon, we've obeyed it.
I agreed with the sermon, therefore I'm good.
But agreement isn't obedience. Mission requires action.
This brings us back to the fuel for that action. We talked about the Moravians and their 100-year prayer meeting. The source suggests a shift in our personal prayer life, too. It calls it directional prayer.
Or missional mapping prayer. Most of us pray vague prayers. God bless the world. God, be with the missionaries.
Bless this food to our bodies.
Right. It's safe. It's polite. Directional prayer is specific. It connects back to that map of your Jerusalem. You put the names of your coworkers on a list. You pray for specific openings. God, please give me a chance to speak to Sarah today. God, show me how to serve my neighbor Dave.
It totally changes your awareness.
Completely. If you pray for your neighbor by name every morning, asking for an opportunity, you're going to be looking for it.
Yeah.
When you see him taking out the trash, you won't just wave and keep walking. You'll see it as the God moment you asked for. It aligns your heart with God's heart for that person.
It seems like the source is really trying to strip away all the complexity we've added to religion. We've built these massive structures, these complicated programs, these professional classes of Christians, and the source is just saying, strip it all back.
Strip it back to the core. Identity, authority, sentness.
There's a question near the end of the manuscript that I think serves as a brutal, necessary gut check for anyone listening. It's the kind of question that keeps you up at night.
It really is. The question is, if mission were removed from your faith or your church, what would actually change?
Oof. Let that sit for a second. If mission were removed, what would change?
If the answer is very little, if our church services will look exactly the same, if our budget would look mostly the same, if our personal schedules would be totally unaffected, then we have a diagnosis.
It means mission is just an accessory. It's a hood ornament.
Right. But if mission is your identity, then removing it would be fatal. It would be like removing the engine from the car. The whole thing stops making sense. It stops moving.
And that brings us back to the title. The mission was never optional, because the gospel itself is movement.
It is. You cannot be part of the story of ascending God and stay stationary. It's ontologically impossible. To be a Christian is to be sent.
So we aren't going to leave you with just high-level theory. We want to issue a challenge based on this source material. We talked about the personal audit.
Yes. Take a hard look at your life this week. Look at your calendar, look at your bank statement, and look at your prayer list, if you have one.
Ask yourself, where is my Jerusalem? Who are the specific people I am an ambassador to right now? And here's the hard part. Is there anything in my life that needs to be pruned to make space for that calling?
Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe it's a Netflix habit. Maybe it's a church committee that just spins its wheels. What needs to go so that you can go?
It's not about doing more stuff to make God happy. It's about becoming who we were actually designed to be.
Sent people.
And before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought to chew on. We talk so much about pruning activities and finding your geography. But think about the spaces in your life where you feel the most thoroughly unqualified. What if that feeling of inadequacy isn't a sign to step back and let the professionals handle it, but the exact qualification needed? What if stepping into the awkwardness of your Samaria without a perfect script is precisely what makes the message authentic?
That's a powerful way to look at it.
That's the deep dive. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.